Maniacs, welcome back to the channel, your local bedhead here. So if you guys know me, you know that I like to take a little bit of a break every now and then with the paranormal content and talk about something I'm also very passionate in, and that's the horror movie genre. Today, I just saw an article out of nowhere. Basically, the director of A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors, arguably probably one of the best in the franchise, has just come out recently and said that they have an idea, or they have a kind of a personal interest in somebody to play Freddy if these movies were to continue. And I will say that this person is not necessarily who would have come to my mind right away. But the more I've thought about it, before I was filming this video, I wanted to think about this a few more minutes because I'm like, can I really see this? And oddly enough, I kind of can. As we all know, Freddy became more of a comedian down the road. He became more humorous, and he wasn't as scary as he was in those first couple movies. But Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was like the final movie where I think we had that awesome Freddy Krueger character, and then he became more of a comic, really. So I can see this person bringing that kind of charisma to the role, and mainly only that. I'm not sure how he is with serious roles. I've heard he's amazing in serious roles, but I haven't seen a lot of his serious stuff. So I'm just kind of going off of word of mouth at this point that the guy can pull off a really serious performance when he wants to. Yes, the actor I'm talking about is Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is the one that is in the eyes of this director right now to be able to go and continue on the legacy of like Robert Englund, to take on the role of Freddy Krueger, who is one of the most iconic horror characters of all time. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he was just recently voted as the scariest character in horror history, which it is honestly, would I have picked him for the scariest? No, I wouldn't have, but I can respect it because it is Krueger. Krueger is terrifying, especially in those first couple movies. Let's go ahead and dive into it. I'll tell you what I think. Here we go. Read you the article from Bloody Disgusting because Bloody Disgusting is awesome. Dream Warriors director Chuck Russell thinks Jim Carrey could play Freddy Krueger in a new Nightmare on Elm Street film. I've heard of this film, the number 23. Haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. Chuck Russell, director and co-writer of the fan favorite sequel, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, is interested in returning to the world of Freddy Krueger, especially if he can reunite with stars Patricia Arquette and Robert Englund. So, more than likely, they'll bring Robert Englund back, but as somebody else. He can't do the voice anymore. He just doesn't want to put on that makeup. It's completely understandable. He's done it so many times, he just doesn't want to do it. But if I'm not mistaken, Jim Carrey is not too far off from Robert Englund's age, right? Yeah. I'd love to do another Elm Street if there was the full support of everybody. Russell told Dread Central's Development Hell podcast. Patricia Arquette has said she'd like to do it again in the press. Very interesting because she didn't talk about it a lot earlier in her career. She was so terrific. And when she was so terrific and went on to have such a great career, I think that's a good idea too. He continues, I still think Robert for me is the only Freddy. He continues, I still think Robert, for me, is the only Freddy, where I too be involved in a new Elm Street. A, I'd be delighted, and B, my first goal would be to get Robert involved. Whether it's Krueger or not, he would want him involved, yeah. And you have to. You almost have to, at least somewhere in there. With Englund having gone on record as saying his Freddy days are behind him, Russell thinks Jim Carrey, with whom he collaborated on with The Mask, could pull off the iconic role. So, think about The Grinch, The Mask. Think of what he could do behind the makeup of Freddy Krueger. I mean, he could give some really crazy facial expressions as Krueger, which could be really cool. Obviously, though, Carrey has already said that he's not big on the makeup. A little bit of makeup's fine. But, to do something like The Grinch again, he only said he would do The Grinch too if, he didn't have to put on the makeup, which is going to be off to a lot of people. I know they want to do, CGI and stuff, but it won't look as good. That's kind of my only downside with that, is that it looked so good in that first Grinch movie. And so if he does it without doing the makeup, it's not going to look as good. Anyways, and I don't know where they would take the story anyways with The Grinch. I really don't. With Englund having gone on record saying his Freddy days are behind him, Russell thinks Jim Carrey, to whom he collaborated with The Mask, could pull off the iconic role. Jim, in my opinion, could almost do anything if he puts his heart into it, Russell said. For Jim to do it, we'd have to do something that was another leap in the Elm Street franchise, a little bit like what Wes did with his very meta New Nightmare. I think Jim would only consider it, and I'd only consider harnessing Jim if there was bold new direction for Elm Street. So it wouldn't be like the old Elm Street series. It would be completely something different, is what he's saying. A bold new direction for it, which I don't know what that could I don't know what that could mean. Honestly, that's a little bit I don't know. Russell recently returned to horror with a reimagining of the 1986 horror cult classic Witchboard, now on video on demand. Meanwhile, Dream Warriors received a 4K restoration for the new Nightmare on Elm Street 4K collection. Okay, so that's basically it. He thinks Jim Carrey would be a good pick for a new Krueger. Here are things that you have to consider about Jim Carrey, though, and why I don't think he would ever do this. Because if, let's say, Jim decided he wanted to take on the role of Freddy Krueger, which would be a crazy role to take on, it would pretty much mean that is the role he's going to do for the rest of his life. Right? Like, for the remaining years of his life. I actually, maybe not, because I don't think he's that old. He's 63 years old, so a 63-year-old putting on the Freddy Krueger makeup, he'd be, who knows, probably in his 70s by the time he's done with the films. That's a commitment. No doubt, if he does do Krueger, they are going to expect him to sign on to a multiple movie deal. You know, you're not going to be a one-and-done thing. It's going to be a several movie deal, especially if he's really good as the character. They're not going to want to let him go that fast. It's all about the money. That's a commitment. So I really do doubt he would ever go near this character, because it would mean a commitment. And he's already doing the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Then again, he just did Robotnik, right? Harold Robotnik, the dad, with a lot of makeup. So maybe they could get away with it with Carrey. Maybe they could get away with it in some ways. It'd be a little bit more makeup, but it would probably be not too far off from that. So he'd be in his 80s putting on the makeup, where Jim, he's got the jawline, he's got the face is very expressive. He would be, like, look-wise, he would be a cool-looking Freddy Krueger, I think. Would it be my first pick? No, it wouldn't. I still think Kevin Bacon would be a better pick for Krueger than Jim Carrey. It's not a bad choice. What we really got to think about, really, too, is that how many people are going to look beyond Jim Carrey and only seeing Jim Carrey, right? You're playing an icon like Freddy Krueger, where Robert was kind of, if this is right of me to say, molded. The actor was molded out of Freddy Krueger. Like, people only know Robert for that role. I hate to say it. He's just that guy. That's the definitive performance of his entire career, and that will always be his definitive performance, which a lot of actors should be grateful for that stuff, because you really don't get those opportunities that often. Where Jim Carrey, he's kind of a well-known, well-established, very iconic actor who has done a lot of iconic roles. And everybody knows him from different things, like The Grinch, Christmas Carol, Ace Ventura, The Mask, Bruce Almighty, Liar Liar, Dumb and Dumber. I mean, the list goes on and on and on from so many iconic roles, where Robert Englund, he did the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, which is arguably one of the most popular horror franchises of all time. And then the other stuff in between has been kind of, hit or miss with low-budget stuff and sci-fi movies and things like that, which is not a bad thing. I'm not dissing on the guy at all. The guy has a huge career. But Jim Carrey's had more iconic roles, where Robert Englund's only had really one real iconic role, and that is Freddy Krueger. I don't think that's wrong of me to say at all. So how many people are going to look beyond seeing only Jim Carrey and seeing Krueger behind that face? I don't know how many people are going to be able to do it. It'll be like, oh, we're watching Jim Carrey, not Freddy Krueger. We're watching Jim Carrey. That's another thing that's going to be a challenge for this director if, let's say, they actually do it. But I don't think they're going to do it, because, again, that's a commitment. Jim Carrey has announced many times he wants to retire. If he does this, it's going to be another franchise, a recent franchise he has to sign on to do, and I just don't see it. I really don't. And the fact that it's going to be a horror franchise, because you gotta be scary too. You can't just be funny. You have to be a little scary. And I'm sure he can do it, but does he want to do it? That's the thing. Having said that, I'm a massive fan of Jim Carrey. I've always liked the guy. I think some of my favorite performances are from childhood. The Grinch is one of my personal favorites. I love The Mask. Dumb and Dumber is great. So many iconic movies. And to see him even brought up as a possibility, somebody's like personal preference on like who he would like to see in the role. Okay, it's not the worst choice out there. I can think of many more worse choices. Kevin Bacon is still the one I think I would lean more towards if you had to give me an option. But having said that, going back to the positives, his face is very expressive. He could do so much behind that makeup, no doubt in my mind. He's an icon. You're not, if you get him, you're gonna make a load of money, right? If you get Jim Carrey, people are gonna die to go out and watch that Nightmare on Elm Street film. I don't see it happening. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Do take care.
Reactions are nothing new. However, there is one man on a mission who wants to prove the world a fakery. He used to follow all these paranormal shows. Now he's had enough. He is done. Dark thoughts is throwing down, coming after all his paranormal crowds. He is watching, not letting them get away. All these fakers, they're gonna have to pay. Chicken Tops is throwing down.